The gentle waves of the Atlantic Ocean rocked the fishing boat Hope, 200 kilometers off the coast of Tanzania. 4 fishermen, Jamal, Abbasi, Hassan, and Kofi, were casting their nets, hoping for a good catch. The day was hot, windless, and nothing seemed unusual. Jamal was the first to notice strange movement in the water about 50 meters from the boat. He pointed out a dark shape slowly moving along the surface. At first they thought it might be a dolphin, but the way it moved was too strange. Abbasi picked up the binoculars, focused on the object, and suddenly dropped them in shock. What he saw made no sense. A real lion was swimming in the open ocean. At first the others thought Abbasi was joking, or maybe had been in the sun too long. But when they looked through the binoculars themselves, their doubtful laughter turned into shock. 200 kilometers from shore, where the depth reached several kilometers, a full-grown lion with a soaked, heavy mane was truly swimming. The animal was clearly exhausted, and its movements were getting slower and weaker. The fishermen looked at each other in silence. No one could understand how the king of the African savanna had ended up in the middle of the ocean, so far from land. Something like this couldn't have happened naturally. Jamal, the leader of the group, quickly grabbed the radio. The situation needed urgent help from professionals. He contacted the Coast Guard in Dar es Salaam, gave their coordinates, and described the unbelievable sight. A grown lion in critical condition, fighting for its life in the middle of the ocean. At first, the Coast Guard dispatcher didn't believe the report and asked several times to confirm the details. Once he was sure the fishermen were serious, he promised to send a rescue team right away and asked them to keep an eye on the animal but not get too close, for safety. While Jamal spoke to the Coast Guard, the other fishermen carefully steered the boat, keeping a safe distance from the lion but not losing sight of it. The lion was quickly losing strength. Sometimes its head would sink completely under the water, and only the soaked reddish mane would show above the surface. In those moments, the fishermen held their breath. It seemed the animal might never come up again. After 2 long hours, a rescue ship called Savannah from the Tanzanian Coast Guard appeared on the horizon. The team was led by Captain Ismail Biki and came fully equipped to rescue large animals. On board was also Amara Ngozi, a wildlife vet from Serengeti Reserve. The captain ordered the ship to slow down as Savannah approached the location. He didn't want to create waves that could drown the exhausted animal. Amara stood at the front of the ship, watching the lion through binoculars. Its condition was critical. A powerful body made for the savanna, not water, was barely staying afloat. "We need to act right now," Amara said firmly when she saw the lion's head sink again and then come back up. 10 more minutes and we'll lose him for sure. Following her orders, the crew lowered a special raft with low sides into the water. It was designed for rescuing marine mammals. 2 experienced swimmers in protective wetsuits carefully guided the raft toward the lion. They moved slowly, trying not to create waves or scare the animal. When the raft was a few meters from the lion, the predator turned its head and saw the people coming closer. Fear and hopelessness flickered in its eyes. It let out a weak growl, more like a moan, but didn't try to attack or swim away. Its strength was almost gone. Amara, watching from Savannah, gave directions over the radio. "Approach from the downwind side. Speak calmly. Let him get used. Do your voices. Don't make any sudden movements." The swimmers moved with great care. Slowly, they managed to get the platform under the lion's body, but the animal was too weak to climb onto it by itself. "We'll have to lift him," Amara decided. She got into an inflatable boat and came closer to the raft. In her hands was a long pole with a loop at the end, a tool made for handling large predators safely. With incredible precision, Amara slipped the loop around the lion's neck, trying not to hurt it. Then, with the help of the rescuers, she slowly began pulling the animal's body onto the platform. Careful with the head, she directed, watching every move. "We need to keep his airway above the water. Support him on the right. Now the left, that's it, good work." The lion weakly resisted, but his survival instinct made him cooperate with his rescuers. His claws scratched the surface of the raft, leaving deep marks, but there was no aggression in his movements, only the fight to stay alive. Slowly, inch by inch, the huge body of the predator was pulled onto the platform. Water poured from his fur in streams, revealing sharp ribs and a sunken belly. It was clear that the lion had been in the water for many hours, and his exhaustion was critical. Amara immediately gave the animal a mild sedative, enough to lower his stress but not strong enough to make him fall asleep, which would have been dangerous in his current condition. "Now we have to get him on board," she said, catching her breath. "This will be the hardest part of the rescue." The raft with the lion on it was slowly towed toward Savannah. On board, they were preparing the lifting system, a set of pulleys and straps made to lift heavy loads. But this time, the load was a living, exhausted, and nearly dying, yet still very dangerous, big cat. "Bring the raft to the starboard side," ordered Captain Mbeki, watching the operation closely. "Keep it steady, don't let it swing." When the raft reached the ship's side, 4 rescuers carefully climbed down, using a rope ladder. Under Amara's direction, they began securing safety straps around the lion's body. Each strap was placed very carefully, tight enough to hold during the lift, but not so tight that it would make breathing harder. "Is the chest free?" "Check his airways," Amara said, controlling every step. "Watch the head. The head must always be higher than the body." After all the straps were in place, the rescuers climbed back up, leaving only 2 main ropes supporting the lion's weight for the lift. "Raise him slowly and evenly," the captain commanded. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. The pulleys creaked. The ropes stretched. Under the lion's weight, the raft dipped under the water for a second, then leveled out. Slowly, inch by inch, the animal began rising above the waves. This moment was the most critical. Any sudden movement, any mistake could drop the lion back into the sea or cause injuries that, in his condition, would be fatal. But the crew of Savannah worked like a single, well-tuned machine. When the lion's head reached the level of the deck, Amara saw him clearly for the first time, without water or splashes in the way. He was a magnificent male in his prime, with a dark mane, but now his look only brought sadness and worry. His eyes were half closed, his breathing shallow, his fur matted and dull. "Bring him here." Amara pointed to a prepared area on the deck, covered with thick mats and a tarp. "Careful, don't let him swing." 4 sailors used long poles with hooks to carefully guide the lion's body until the lion was directly above the improvised bed. On Amara's command, the ropes were slowly loosened, and the animal was lowered onto the deck. "Secure him." Amara quickly fastened a special collar around the lion's head. It would stop him from reaching the people nearby, but wouldn't affect his breathing. "Now take off the straps, one by one, starting with the hind legs." Noticing the lion was starting to come out of light sedation, Amara quickly gave him another small dose. "Everyone, move back 3 meters, she ordered. "I need an IV drip, an oxygen mask, and a thermal blanket." The vet worked with amazing speed and accuracy. Her hands moved quickly over the lion's body, setting up an IV with saline and electrolytes, checking his pupils, taking his temperature, and feeling his belly for internal injuries. "His temperature is critically low, 35.2 degrees, she reported. "Heartbeat is irregular, breathing is shallow. Strong signs of dehydration. We have to stabilize him or we'll lose him." The whole crew of Savannah joined the fight to save their unusual passenger. Someone held heating packs to the lion's legs, someone supported the IV drip, and someone watched the monitors tracking his vital signs. Amara pulled out several ampules of medicine from her bag. Heart stimulants, broad-spectrum antibiotics. "Anti-shock meds," she said, giving one injection after another. "I hope this will help him hold on until we reach the shore." After half an hour of intense treatment, the lion began to show the first signs of improvement. His breathing became deeper and more steady, and his heartbeat stabilized. But full recovery was still a long way off. "Captain, how long until we reach the coast?" Amara asked, not taking her eyes off the heart monitor. "At top speed." 4 hours, Mbeki replied. But the sea is rough, so there might be delays. We have to make it in time, Amara said, biting her lip. In his condition, every hour counts. Savannah was cutting through the waves at full speed, heading toward the Tanzanian coast. On the deck, Amara and her assistants were fighting for the lion's life. Every 15 minutes, the vet checked his condition, adjusted the medicine doses, and changed the IVs. At one point, the lion suddenly twitched and let out a weak growl. His eyes opened wide, and his pupils were large from fear and confusion. "Easy, easy," Amara said in a calm, even voice, looking into the predator's eyes. "You're safe now. We're helping you. Everything's going to be okay." The lion stared at her for several long seconds. Then his eyelids slowly lowered again. But this time it wasn't from exhaustion. It looked more like natural sleep, needed for recovery. "He's fighting," Amara said with respect in her voice. "After everything he's been through, he's still fighting. Incredible spirit." 1 hour before arriving at the port of Dar es Salaam, Captain Mbeki contacted the coastal services, requesting transport to carry the lion to a veterinary center. He also reached out to the department responsible for stopping poaching and illegal animal transport, suggesting they open an investigation. "We need helicopter evacuation," Amara said when the captain returned to the deck. "It's too long and dangerous by land in his condition. He wouldn't survive such a hard trip." The captain nodded and went back to the bridge. A few minutes later, he returned with good news. "The helicopter will be ready when we arrive. The flight path is already clear." By the time Savannah docked at the pier, a special transport vehicle equipped for large animals was already waiting, along with a group of police officers from the anti-smuggling unit. Moving the lion from the ship to the special stretcher, and then into the helicopter, was done with extreme care. Amara didn't leave her patient for a single second, constantly monitoring his condition. "Lift on 3, she ordered, as 6 carriers prepared to move the lion from the deck to the pier. "Keep the head up, watch the IV. No sudden movements." Finally, the lion was safely placed inside the helicopter. Amara and 2 of her assistants boarded with him, continuing monitoring and treatment during the flight. The helicopter took off, heading for the veterinary center, where a team of 6 specialists was already waiting. The lion was immediately connected to more advanced medical equipment. He had an X-ray, an ultrasound of his organs, and detailed blood tests. The next 3 days were critical. The lion was on the edge of life and death. Twice his heart stopped, and the vets had to use a defibrillator. His lungs, partly filled with seawater, needed constant draining. His kidneys were working at full capacity to remove toxins from his body. Amara and her colleagues worked in shifts, never leaving the lion's side. They gave antibiotics to prevent pneumonia, fed him with nutrient-rich mixtures through a tube, and constantly managed his hydration. On the 4th day, the lion began showing clear signs of stable recovery. He lifted his head on his own and even tried to stand, though his legs were still shaking from weakness. By the end of the week, he was eating without a feeding tube. First liquid meals, then finally chopped meat. "This is a real miracle," Amara told her colleagues. "Based on his medical condition, he should have died out there in the ocean. But something made him keep going. Something incredibly strong inside him." Meanwhile, back on land, the Coast Guard Command Center had launched an investigation. Tracking data from marine traffic systems over the past 48 hours was reviewed, and crews of other fishing vessels in the area were questioned. Special attention was given to ships that had changed course or speed after the lion was spotted. By the next morning, there was a lead. A cargo ship named Black Rhino, flying the flag of a small island nation, had been in the area about 10 hours before the incident, according to satellite tracking. After entering Tanzanian territorial waters, the ship suddenly changed course and sped up, heading toward international waters. Further checks revealed that the Black Rhino had already caught the attention of Interpol and was on the list of ships under special observation. The head of the operation, Colonel Dauda Ahmed, made the decision to inspect the ship. A special task force was assembled. The operation to seize the Black Rhino began at dawn. A helicopter spotted the ship about 300 kilometers from the Tanzanian coast, heading toward international waters. High-speed Coast Guard boats Cheetah and Hawk rushed toward the target at top speed. On board each vessel were 10 Special Forces soldiers in full combat gear, led by Major Omari. As night fell, the boats turned off their navigation lights and quietly approached the Black Rhino from both sides. The helicopter hovered over them, stern, lighting the deck with a powerful spotlight. The boarding team used grappling hooks and assault ladders to quickly climb the ship's tall side and land on the deck. The soldiers quickly took down the guards on the upper deck and moved toward the bridge. The ship's captain, a Somali citizen named Farid Adam, and his first officer surrendered without resistance. However, in the lower hold, guards opened fire on the assault team. Using smoke grenades and flashbangs, the Special Forces cleared the lower decks step by step. 15 minutes after the operation started, all resistance was stopped. When Major Omari personally led a team to inspect the cargo holds, the scene they found shocked even the most experienced soldiers. In 3 massive compartments, hundreds of African animals were being kept in horrifying conditions. In the first hold were 4 young elephants, chained to metal rings in the floor. Their legs were rubbed raw and bleeding, and their trunks were tied with ropes. Nearby, 6 white rhinos were squeezed into small cages so tightly they couldn't even turn around. Some had their horns crudely sawed off. At the far end of the hold were cages with around 20 lions and lionesses of different ages. Many lay motionless, with only faint breathing showing they were still alive. The second hold was filled with hoofed animals, dozens of zebras, various types of antelope, including rare okapi and bongo, and 3 giraffes with unnaturally bent necks due to low ceilings. The air was filled with an unbearable stench from uncleaned waste, and many animals were standing ankle-deep in their own filth. The water containers were empty, and the food trays held only moldy leftovers. The third hold contained cages with birds and small animals, hundreds of gray parrots and turacos. Many of them had plucked out their own feathers from stress. There were dozens of monkeys of different species curled up in cage corners, crocodiles, and giant tortoises packed into small boxes with no water. "We need help." A lot of help. Major Omari immediately called for backup over a secure radio line. Hundreds of animals in critical condition. "We need vets." Equipment and transport for evacuation were quickly mobilized. Within hours, 2 additional Coast Guard ships reached the Black Rhino, along with a cargo vessel named Arcata, which had been hastily modified for animal transport. On board were 28 veterinarians from the Tanzanian National Parks Authority and international organizations, supported by technical staff and a full set of rescue equipment. What followed was an unprecedented animal rescue operation. The veterinarians divided into specialized teams, each assigned to a particular group of animals. Their first priority was to provide fresh water and treat the most critically ill. The elephants were in particularly grave condition, dehydrated, with infected wounds on their legs, worn down by days of confinement. IV systems were set up directly in the ship's hold, as moving the animals could have proved fatal. The youngest elephant couldn't stand and lay on its side, barely breathing. For him, a special support frame was constructed to prevent internal damage from the pressure of his own weight. The lions and other big cats showed signs of extreme exhaustion and dehydration. Many received intravenous nutrition. Others were given finely chopped meat mixed with medicine. The vets treated deep lacerations from the cramped cages and administered antibiotics and anti-inflammatory drugs. The giraffes presented unique challenges. Days of being restrained in unnatural positions had caused serious circulation issues. Using braces and stretchers, the veterinarians worked slowly and carefully to restore their necks to a natural alignment without further harm. Rescuing the birds required additional care. Many were suffering from extreme stress. To calm them, each cage was draped with dark fabric to simulate nighttime. The specialists then gently removed them one at a time, checked their conditions, provided fluids, and started treatment. The rescue operation continued through the night. By the next morning, the first animals were ready for evacuation. The weakest and youngest were transported first. A specific protocol had been designed for each species, based on their biology and behavior. Moving large animals proved especially difficult. Elephants and giraffes were lifted using customized harnesses and mechanical systems to prevent injury. Each individual transfer could take up to an hour and involved a team of up to 15 people. By the second day's end, roughly 1/3 of the animals had been loaded onto the Arcata and supporting vessels. For the most critical cases, air evacuation was arranged. Helicopters with suspended platforms flew them to specialized rehabilitation centers. The rescue effort spanned 5 days. Vets and technicians pushed themselves to the limit, rotating shifts to sleep no more than 3 or 4 hours a night. Despite their unwavering dedication, not all animals survived. Some had been too weakened by the horrific conditions and couldn't withstand the stress of transport. Still, over 90% of the animals from the black rhino were successfully rescued and moved to safety. In total, the operation saved 3 out of 4 elephants, all 6 rhinos, 18 of 20 lions, all 3 giraffes, around 50 zebras, over 100 antelopes from various species, dozens of monkeys, hundreds of birds, and several reptiles, including crocodiles and tortoises. As the rescue continued, authorities began an investigation aboard the black rhino. In the captain's quarters, they discovered documents revealing the scale of the smuggling ring. The black rhino was one of 5 ships used by an international syndicate known as Red Claw, engaged in the illegal trafficking of African wildlife to countries in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Captain Farid Adem agreed to cooperate with the investigators. During interrogation, he revealed the truth about the lion rescued by the fishermen. That lion was one of 3 adult males taken from the Serengeti for a private zoo owned by a Saudi sheikh. Adem confessed. A storm hit, a cage tipped over, the lock broke, and the lion escaped onto the deck. He was weak but still dangerous. One of our crew was injured. I ordered them to get rid of it. They forced him to the edge and pushed him overboard using the crane. When asked why they hadn't tried to recapture the lion, he said, "We panicked. No one wanted to face a furious lion up close. We assumed he'd drown immediately. Who could have guessed he'd survive or swim that far?" After the incident, the black rhino altered course and accelerated, hoping to avoid detection. "We miscalculated," Adem admitted. "No one imagined a lion could survive at sea. He should have drowned in minutes, but instead he survived and led you straight to us." Armed with the evidence and testimonies gathered from the black rhino, Interpol launched a sweeping international crackdown. Within days, coordinated raids were executed at ports across 5 countries. Over 30 individuals were arrested, including high-ranking syndicate members. 3 additional ships carrying illegal wildlife cargo were intercepted and seized. The rescued animals were relocated to national parks and wildlife sanctuaries across East Africa. Many went to a dedicated rehabilitation center where they received long-term care. Some of the most traumatized animals needed months of treatment before they could be safely reintroduced to the wild. The lions were given special rehabilitation to prepare them for life outside captivity. Their diets were gradually shifted from artificial food to natural prey. For the younger lions, a specialized training program helped rebuild their hunting instincts, as most had never lived in the wild. The lion rescued by the fishermen was named Bahari, which means ocean in Swahili. After recovering at the veterinary center under the close care of Amara Ngozi, he was moved to the Serengeti National Park. A large adaptation enclosure covering several hectares was built for him, where he spent weeks regaining strength and acclimating to the wild. When it was time to release Bahari, the fishermen from Hope who had pulled him from the sea were invited to attend the ceremony, along with members of the Savannah crew who had helped save his life. The gates opened, and the lion, after a brief pause, stepped into his new world. He stopped, turned back as if to acknowledge those who had saved him, then vanished into the golden grass of the savannah. A GPS collar allowed researchers to monitor his progress. To their astonishment, Bahari not only survived, he thrived. Within months, he had secured a territory, defeated rival males, and formed a pride with 6 lionesses. Within a year, he had fathered 12 cubs from 3 different females. What fascinated scientists most was Bahari's unusual affinity for water. Unlike typical lions, he frequently swam across rivers and hunted in wetlands, using water as part of his strategy. Experts believed his ocean ordeal had permanently altered his behavior. Meanwhile, in Mweni Maximum Security Prison, Captain Farid Adam continues serving his 15-year sentence. In an interview for the prison newspaper a year after his arrest, he reflected, "That lion still haunts my dreams. I see his eyes, full of fire and resolve. We thought he'd drown in minutes. We didn't even shoot him. We never imagined he'd live, let alone bring down our entire operation." The rescue mission aboard the Black Rhino sparked global awareness of illegal wildlife trafficking. In Tanzania, a dedicated fund was established to combat poaching and illegal animal transport. International collaboration in this area increased significantly. The vets involved in the rescue developed new treatment protocols for animals traumatized by trafficking, which were adopted worldwide and have since saved thousands of animals. One of the most lasting outcomes was the creation of an international maritime monitoring system, using satellite tracking and AI to detect suspicious vessels. This system has already thwarted dozens of smuggling attempts. At the 2023 International Wildlife Protection Conference in Nairobi, Tanzania's Environment Minister delivered a speech that became iconic. "If that lion hadn't fought to survive, none of this would have happened. We wouldn't have dismantled the biggest wildlife smuggling network or saved so many lives." One lion's courage exposed a criminal empire and sparked a movement. Sometimes, all it takes is one brave heart. Unaware of the legacy he had sparked, Bahari continued life in the Serengeti, raising a new generation. His cubs, easily recognized by their dark manes inherited from him, spread throughout the eastern region of the park. Rangers noted they too were unusually comfortable around water, a trait that gave their pride a clear edge during dry seasons. Each year, on the anniversary of Bahari's rescue, the Serengeti Reserve holds a ceremony for local children. They hear the story of a lion's courage and the kindness of strangers, a tale that proves compassion and bravery can triumph over cruelty and greed. The story reminds us all to protect the wild and to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves.